Appreciate that, yeah.
It looks to me if part of the building actually falls within that so-called area that it shouldn't be.
Just bring the time back.
And it would be easier to see it on that.
Just make a point. Don't get shouted at when you have to make a point.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chairman, and apologies for that. So, I mean, just going back to this plan, I mean, it's basically the building is in the same position there. So, essentially, this middle area is the area where activities associated with the crematorium can take place without...
Can take place.
Yeah. So the middle area is where anything which is related to the crematorium as defined in the Act will have to take place. So the areas here and here are the areas where the activities that are not part of the crematorium as we understand it in the definition.
Car park. Sorry.
And that would not include the car park on our understanding, having taken a glass.
What's wrong?
I did say we're not getting into a debate.
Well, I've probably covered hopefully most of the issues in my presentation that have been raised tonight. I'm just going to go through and see if there's anything I haven't covered. Yeah, I mean, policy LC13, we do mention in the report, and that's a policy on community facilities. I appreciate the point that was made by one speaker that clearly a crematorium is not a community centre, wouldn't claim it was. But in terms of offering a facility for the community, clearly it is a service which, you know, people from time to time will need to access. So in our view, it is legitimate to see this proposal being relevant under that policy. So again, in principle, looking at the wording of the policy, we believe that the proposals would be acceptable under that policy. I heard a comment from the retired firefighter in terms of the impact on potential impact on the fire station. Now, we have consulted with the Fire and Rescue Service on the application. Now, they haven't raised any objections to it.
Can I come in?
No, sorry.
That's the position. We've had no objections from the Fire and Rescue Service, and clearly on the absence of any objections, there's no basis on which we can, I think, further that. I mean, we heard from Thorntons obviously about their concerns, and clearly I can understand where Thorntons would be coming from. All I would say on that is, in terms of the restrictions that the Crematorium Act apply, they do in effect control the proximity of crematorium facilities to residential properties. They don't say anything about commercial uses, so there isn't anything in legislation that would prevent somebody locating a crematorium close to an industrial use, and clearly, you know, the potential impact on that company is quite difficult to substantiate, but we don't believe that those concerns are sufficient to warrant an objection. We heard a comment about the fact that this could be the thin end of the wedge, and I think I'd probably want to emphasise possibly the opposite to that. I think down the years this policy has proved very successful in protecting that area of the borough from development. But it's crucial that members understand that the policy does not prevent development per se. It's not worded in that way. It does allow development where the council consider that the proposals that come forward in that area are necessary in the countryside and cannot be reasonably located in the settlement. The additional test in EN5, if you're satisfied that this proposal meets EN1, is whether that proposal, in terms of the detail of it, the scale, the design, the location of built development within the site, actually compromises what policy EN5 is designed to do, which is to keep those three settlements of Alfred, Swanwick and Save separate. Our view is the scale of that, the design of it, the location of it within the site would not undermine EN5. But if we had other proposals that come forward in that area, our view is that supporting this would not create a precedent for future proposals that may come forward. We will then, as officers, judge those on their merits, as would you as members, as and when those decisions come forward. clearly happy to answer any members' questions as they arise if there are points that I haven't picked up on, and I may wish to come back with some further comments at the end of the debate there, Chairman.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Right. Members' comments. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got quite a few comments after listening to the people tonight and listening to the officer. The first thing I picked up on was on page 10 about the death rate. It says the death rate in Amber Valley is higher than the average. I find that interesting. Also, I've got very poor health, as I have. I'm concerned, I don't know why that's been picked up on. My second point is the scrutiny committee in 2006 under Nigel Mills had a case, said there was no case for a crematorium in Alfreton. I'd like to know from the officers what has changed since then. What's the difference? Thirdly, the site's next to Thornton's. I'm concerned about that. Thornton's is a Amber Valley trademark. I know you children probably get me on this. I prefer my chocolate to be 100% chocolate. I don't sorry, I've been put for that.
I do the joke, Councillor Taylor.
So, I've done one, so that's it. But the present crematoriums, I think 7 were mentioned, I believe in gentlemen mentioned across there 7. From what I read from the report, it doesn't seem as if the capacity is over. No, they've got room. So do we need this? Also, they mentioned, obviously, we Derbyshire County Highways normally mention the fact about they don't usually give us much forward on traffic. I'm concerned that we're going to have slow moving, I think I'll come Hurst, the processions. Thank you, that's the word I was looking for. They're going to be going through. That could be a traffic hazard in my eyes. They'll be turning in, they'll be turning out. I think they're going to be turning across the actual carriageway. I'm concerned about that. You mentioned the fact about, look a bit about it, is it for need or is it for profit? I'm concerned about, the order could have picked up as well, we mentioned about the graveyard, about the graves. Now, on the report, it says, I think it was 8 years about for the grave, before they fill the graveyard up. Does this mean that sides, either side, are going to be in danger in the future of becoming a graveyard? Are we going to get more graveyards on either side, or the fields either side going to become that? But the most important thing, and my last one I'm going to come to, is that in 2006, this council did a thing through Mr. Councillor Hayes, and we did a special, it's our local plan, and our local plan, EN5, said that we were going to give protected open land, and it names this area. Now, I'm concerned that now we are saying, below that, throw it in the bin, we don't want it anymore. And so, on that, on the EN5 alone, I cannot support this. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Bear with me. I can tell you straight, don't stand easy with this. On page 10, it says quite clearly, all 4 existing crematoriums are old, ranging from 35 to 56 years old. Crematorium at Derby has just had £2 million spent on it. Oh, hold on. But it's been working on a 3-day week for the last year. It is now, today, gone on to 5 days again. So how many more cremations can they increase there? The adopted plan. I've been on this council for 25 years. And I can assure you, Chairman, that when the plan has been adopted, there's been a lot of work gone into it. I remember when Councillor Cox was the leader, and the amount of work that went into the adopted plan. And we don't do things lightly in this council. We do it seriously and take a lot of time about listening to things. And we decided at that time, in the adopted plan, that this land should be protected. And it's protected open land. And I stand with that right the way through. Central location. It states quite clearly it should be a central location. Central location to where? Amber Valley? Well, this site is on the north of Amber Valley. It's central location to Matlock and Wakesworth, as the undertaker said. It isn't central to Amber Valley. Disposal of ashes. The catchment of the population, this is the open area, 5 perfect land. Declining volumes, that was said. I spoke to the local undertakers in Belper, where I live, and I asked them their opinion, and they quite clearly told me there's a declining volumes in cremations at the moment. So with the declining volumes and the increase of intake at Mark Eaton, then I believe there's more than enough facilities to accommodate any cremations in the area. Chesterfield Road, Belper. Where the hell is Chesterfield Road, Belper? I live in Belper, and there's no piece of land on Chesterfield Road in Belper capable of supporting a crematorium. So I wish you get your facts right. You're not the local plan. Matlock and Wexford. The undertaker from Matlock was talking about his benefits of Matlock. The people at Belper are quite happy, and I assume the people at Ripley are quite happy. And to think of putting a crematorium at the side of Thornton's, well, I don't know, that bewilders me. But the other thing is, what is identified as countryside in the dictionary? 3 fields separating 2 towns, is that countryside location? Because to me it isn't. I should like to know what the dictionary says about a countryside location. I think I've said my piece, but I can't support it.
Councillor Horton's next.
Yeah,
Councillor Walker. Councillor Wilson.
in my ward is Mark Eaton Crematorium, and I drive past it on a regular basis. And it is set in a rural setting, and as I thought, it has in a way acted as a bit of a buffer for housing, because I suppose you could say they've never managed to build across the road, and possibly if they do, then the people across the road would be pleased with that small wedge. But the main thing I think when I drive down there is at night it doesn't have the rural feel because of all the light pollution from the crematorium, so I'd want to know more about the lighting, and I know it's not mentioned in here. And, but, you know, I'm not quite sure how to vote yet either way. It is, I do feel important to reserve that area of green land, and so I've still got to put a bit more thought into it, but if you could find out about lighting and things like that.
Yeah. Councillor Walker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My ward runs parallel with this. That first question I want to ask, what is a buffer? Is the buffer 1 metre, 10 metre, 100 metres? Because a buffer is part, to me, the divide between Swanwick, which is a village, and Alfreton, in all due respect, which is a town. Mr. Brown has rightly said the fire station is close by, so that's the first question I want to ask. I'm also going to make comment, Mr. Chairman, because I spoke to you previously before this meeting. I have grave concerns when consultants ring me on a Friday morning. Totally unacceptable, and I don't accept it, and I'm very concerned about that. And I'm making that comment now. No, the members of the planners listening, and I hope the developers listening, because I don't take kindly to that at all. But can we start? The need, and Mr. Staff has talked about need. Well, if we go to page 15, Scrutiny Committee Report 2006, when it was proposed that we had there was an outlying application for a crematorium in Alfreton Park. Well, unfortunately, the people of Alfreton aren't very volatile as a rule. I thought werewolf 3 was going to be declared, as Councillor Bennett will confirm. And the report was, there is no need. Councillor Nelson has gone on quite specifically, and I can add that Mansfield has also had a major refurbishment in the last few months.
Yes.
But also what concerns me greatly is this wonderful Derbyshire County Highways Department have once again no objections. And yet I note that residents of Swanwick who live there, some live on Derby Road, see what happens every day. I know what goes off regularly. There's no comment. But another one is very interesting. It says benefits to the local economy. Now, who's going to receive any benefit other than the local clergy and funeral undertakers? No one else at all. I, for one, want the green wedge between the village of Swanwick and the town of Old Fritton maintained. And in conclusion, I am totally opposed to this. And finally, what also concerns me, with the exception of one, everything has been looked at and placed on the eastern side of the ward, which is Old Fritton, Somercotes, Swanwick and so on. No, with the exception of Councillor Nelson's rightly said, Chesterfield Road at Belper. Now, well, I hear from the undertaker, who I know because I had to deal with him.
No, of course not.
Have you got to take measure, yeah? On a serious matter, having spoken to a number of undertakers, one who actually was employed at this authority for a number of years, he advised me, John, it is no benefit whatsoever, because, as he says, if your mother or your father have been cremated at Mansfield, or your grandma or granddad, they'll want to go to the same place. And that is a fact of life. So, on concluding, I cannot support this application whatsoever. Thank you.
On that basis, Councillor Walker, I've got to go to Councillor Wicklow in Southern Ireland.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Stand up,
Chairman.
I'm going to dead late, but I won't make any jokes. Just a couple of really serious points about EN1, Chair, and the planning officers may be able to help out on the necessary within the countryside and cannot reasonably be located within the existing settlement. I have, and I think when he did his speech, he went on to say at what level reasonableness needs to be set, because that's a really important issue for me. When looking again at these sites that they've assessed against the criteria on page 42, I think at least 3 or 4 of those have similar objections and on checks and balances to the one that's in front of us today. So I can't see where the reasonableness actually lies in offering or proposing an alternative, and particularly with there being no mention of brownfield sites or other sites, then I don't think that passes my kind of reasonable muster. But secondly, on a note, on a comment, I am concerned about obviously the issues that have been raised tonight, that if we do reject it, that when it goes on to appeal, those people will see the criteria, and this is an issue around localism, because we're here to try and support local people and what we want to have developed in this area, that the muster that our officers are putting into this process will pass their principles, thus our debate may be a little bit dodgy in that respect. However, having said that, Chairman,
Thank you.
I will be opposing and voting against this proposal.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Defer to your
Young ducks.
young feminine charge.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did go on site, but when we got there, we couldn't get on the site. And they wanted us to climb over the gate. Well, ladies do not climb over gates, especially in the daylight. That was a start. That was before we even got onto the site. I can't understand how this plan got through, being adjacent to Thornton's. being adjacent to the fire station that that gentleman has told us over there. Could you imagine a serious fire here at Ripley? Fire engine's got to come this way, where the cortege is coming through. Could you imagine it? It doesn't bear thinking about. It really does not. I think, it's already been said about there's been a big facelift at Derby and Mansfield, so I can't see where there's any need for this at all. And I fought vigorously against the Alfred one, and I fought vigorously against, and I fight vigorously against this one, and I shall be voting against.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have not yet made up my mind as to whether everything's going to be said first before I make a decision on how I'm going to vote. Could I ask officers a question? Crematorium Act, we've heard a lot about this. Is that a planning consideration or merely a legal issue that the applicant has to comply with? That's number one question. Number two question, is the need for a crematorium a planning consideration that we have to take into account, or is it, again, if the applicant puts one in, there isn't a need, he loses a lot of money, that's his fault, not ours. Members of Councillor Nelson in particular mentioned about the adopted local plan and it is sacrosanct. I'll just ask one question of members. How many members here voted for development in the green belt of Denver? How many members here voted for development in the green belt of Ripley? It is not sacrosanct. If there are reasons for overcoming the local plan, then it can do. We can put it on one side. Know very well that is the case. We have done it before. It was done for Denby development in the green belt. Members voted for a development there. It was in the green belt. It was against our local plan. We have a lot of plan applications come to this committee, or this board, where it says this application is against the local plan, but we still pass it. So it is not unreasonable, it is not illegal, it is not against any policy for us to not vote for something that's against the local plan.
Point of information. Point of information.
Go ahead, Councillor Ross.
Councillor Cox was on about Greenbelt. I said protected open land,
Right.
which is different.
Councillor Nelson, point of information, you said the local plan is sacrosanct.
Yeah, but that's what that's
Right,
about.
right. No arguing.
I'd like to point of information to other members, the Alfreton Park application was not a planning application. It was never a planning application. It was a request to this council for us to release the land for the company to build a crematorium. The plan application would have come had this council decided to release the land. The council, full council, decided not to release the land, and that was on the basis because it was a parkland, and the people of Alfreton and the members of Alfreton put a very good case together for not developing on that parkland. And incidentally, it was Councillor Woodings was chairman of scrutiny at that time, not Councillor Mills. And finally, I must make this joke before anybody else does, and that's regarding the position of this by the side of Thornton's, you could call it death by chocolate.
Could have left that one in the bag.
Thank you, Chairman. I suspect that by the time I've finished speaking, you might think I'm in a minority. One of the questions I would like to ask of the professionals is, suppose we granted this application, does the whole of that site become consecrated ground? No. In due course. Before I go on, I'd quite like to know the answer to that question.
No.
Yes. With due respect, members will listen to officers, not members of the public.
I'm not an expert.
In case there's any comeback.
I'm not an expert on that issue, but my belief would be that would be the case, but I'm not an expert. I can't with inclusive knowledge of the subject give you a very different answer. I suspect it probably would be, but I wouldn't wish to, rely on that necessarily.
Hang on.
But the Act says that crematorium cannot be built in the consecrated part.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
If you go to the background papers, lead background papers, section 1, which addresses the issue in relation to the Crematorium Act, and in terms of the restrictions, and section 5 of the Cremation Act 1902, where it talks about, related to the siting of the crematorium, it states that no crematorium shall be constructed nearer to any dwelling house than 200 yards, except with the consent right of the owner, unless he occupies such house, nor within 50 yards of a public highway, nor in the consecrated part of the burial ground of any burial ground.
Yeah, thank you for that, but it's still not quite what I was driving at. The actual building would not be on consecrated ground.
Well, it's not consecrated now.
But the rest of the land, should we agree this, and that ultimately become a burial ground, I'm guessing would be consecrated ground.
Well, members shouldn't guess, first of all.
Well, I know, that's why I'm asking the question.
And secondly, the issue of consecration is a matter for the appropriate churches and in relation to each individual burial. But as far as I'm aware, the site where the burials will take place will not be consecrated. It will be a matter for each individual as to what happens in relation to their burial.
Well, thank you for that. It leaves us in a bit of a muddle.
Right, Councillor Moon, just for clarification, I'm going to break with my usual standing orders and I'm going to ask briefly if the applicants can qualify that. So we've got a definitive answer.
Can we confer, Chairman?
If you don't know.
You don't know them,
It's
so
a simple answer, Chairman. In the event that ashes are buried, where the ashes are buried, that would be consecrated ground, but not where the building is.
Sorry, Chairman,
What
with
about burials?
respect, if that's what the person requires, because the person's ashes may be buried and they do not want that specific area of burial to be consecrated, that's a matter of their choice.
Fine, but you can't build on it, whatever their choice is, you can't build on that land once ashes have gone down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
That's the issue, Chairman.
That's
It's
the
not
issue.
consecration, it's a burial.
So let me get this right. Should we agree, or turn it down and then the inspector turn us down again, and this land become used for the crematorium and also as a burial ground,
burial grounds.
whether or not it's consecrated or not, you would still not be able to build on it.
Which was Mr Stafford's point about this gives greater protection to the land by benefit of its use as a burial ground, in terms of protection against future development going forward. I think that was your point, Mr Stafford.
So one could argue, therefore, that if this comes about, its very presence is effectively a greater protection of that particular piece of land than it's got at the moment.
That's the point the officers will make.
But only that thin strip at the side.
Only that thin strip.
Not this field either side.
Oh yeah,
Make that
yeah,
clear.
I'll take that point.
So you'd have to build on the
So
side.
that's the first thing. The second thing is I've heard much argument about people going off to other crematoria in the vicinity. Now, I have nowadays quite a lot of experience of meeting people at funerals.